This podcast contains explicit language and content and is for mature audiences only.
Hey, you teenagers out there. If you're under 18, this show is more for your parents. So now that you have that mental picture stuck in your head, put some music on and get back to doing your homework.
We are a longtime married couple who's decided to chronicle our personal adventures and share our sex-positive discussions as we navigate our way through the swinging lifestyle.
Care to join us?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the We Got a Thing podcast. I'm Mr. Jones.
And I'm Mrs. Jones. And we want to welcome you to episode 9. It's a Friday evening. We've just been out to dinner, just the two of us, and we did the dreaded Costco thing again, but I rewarded Mr. Jones by taking him to this awesome, organic, locally sourced restaurant that had really awesome burgers and French fries. And
that didn't make up for Costco tonight. You had your coat on. It's May.
I had a sweater on because if anybody out there goes to Costco, they know when you go into the produce section, there's that little back room where the lettuce is and the fresh raspberries and everything, and it's about 4 degrees in there.
Yeah, but you don't have to go through every bag of frozen broccoli. You can just pick up the one on top.
It's not frozen, it's just chilled.
Or whatever, but you take so much time in there. If you get in and get your stuff and get out.
I got to get the best date on it. I got to make sure it's not soggy. I don't like soggy broccoli.
Yeah, anyway, you can tell I'm a little cranky tonight after our visit to Costco.
No. We went to this restaurant and we had this lovely bottle of wine from Argentina. It was a Malbec Tempranillo blend
that we drank out of mason jars.
We live in the South, honey.
Yeah.
That's what we drink wine out of.
Yeah.
It's eclectic.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yes, it is. It was lovely. It's a beautiful May evening here in the Southeast, and we just are having just enjoying our weather before the hot and humid real summer hits.
So I want to get you to say the name of this episode. What's the name of this episode?
It's Who the F asterisk are you?
Yeah. What's that mean?
Oh, you mean who the fuck are you?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
I like when you say that word.
So yeah, that's the title of our episode.
Are you going to explain why we chose that, or are we going to wait till we get to the next segment?
Well, we're going to talk about profiles tonight because in our little personal lifestyle journey here, we have run into some interesting profiles lately.
Right.
So there's been enough interesting ones enough in a row. We feel like it might be time to do, a little profile talk.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the profiles. But first, we're going to talk about keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
And not a lot of quantity this month.
But we got some quality.
We got some high quality.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So how does this start? So when we told you about spending an evening in Miami before we went on our cruise in April.
Yes, we did.
And the couple that we met and spent the evening with in Miami had told us that they had attended a party down there for the weekend. And it was, what is it called? Do You Know George?
Do You Know George? Right.
And they said, if you ever get a chance to go to one of these Do You Know George events, you should check it out. So we filed that away.
They told us all about it, and it was amazing.
Oh, yeah. There was a polo match.
Yeah, they did a whole weekend thing, and they stayed in the penthouse of this really exclusive Miami high-rise. And so they went to a polo match, and the ladies had to wear the beautiful hats. And oh my gosh, it was really, really cool.
So I think we thought it was cool, but then we filed it away figuring it was too rich for our blood. But anyway, when we got back, I just happened to notice we get these invitations, and we're going to talk about Cassidy and SLS in a bit when we talk about profiles, but we had received an invitation through Cassidy for this event, and the invitation was from somebody named George Ann, and it didn't register right away with me who that was. And I normally just kind of look at those things real quickly and I delete them, but I opened it, and as I read it, I realized it was the same George that our friends had talked about in Miami.
Do You Know George?
Do You Know George?
Right.
And I said, oh, well, let me look into this. And so we read about it, and it was the very first of a new sort of event that Do You Know George is offering, and it's called Just for Dinner.
Right.
Okay, so
because normally he does these really elaborate weekend events where
Right.
it's like 3 nights and there's a theme and it's just
Right.
at these really posh, amazing places. And he just comes up with the most amazing activities to do during the weekend. And then, of course, it's a lifestyle weekend. So you have all these amazing activities on
Right.
top of being around all these incredibly sexy people that may or may not want to play with you.
But this was just dinner. And so it was intriguing because it would give us an idea of who George was and what his events were like. And that would give us an idea of whether we wanted to try to invest in something of that magnitude just by going out to dinner. So this event was in a really, really nice restaurant in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., one that just a few blocks from where I work, but I've never eaten there before. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And we didn't get a lot of information ahead of time, but normally when you sign up for these things, you just click, I want to go, and you put your credit card in and you're good. But at this time, we had to fill out some sort of
We had to apply.
we had to apply for an invitation, and that application, and that's really, I think, a little bit of what concerned me about this was this going to be full of, really rich people that were snooty and didn't want to talk, to everybody. And so I was a little bit wary of that.
I mean, Mr. Jones and I have managed to get past the paying for college and weddings and things. So we have a little bit more disposable income now, but we're still pretty middle class.
Frugal.
Yes. We have to plan for things like this, which is okay because we can actually plan for them now and
Right.
afford them, but they don't come easily and often.
Yeah, but see, it's a business expense too, because we did research for our podcast.
Right, our podcast that brings us zero income.
Yeah, right. So
but lots and lots of fun and pleasure.
So we decided to apply for an invitation, and you just had to put basic things about yourself. There really wasn't.
No, but you had to send a couple photos
I had
right?
to choose photos, and you got upset with me because I didn't get the 2 photos approved.
He sent photos without consulting me. I mean, ladies, who does that?
Yeah, but they weren't explicit.
We've been married 30 years. Don't you think he would have known by now?
They weren't explicit.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
I have to approve
did we
photos to
get
go on
in?
Facebook.
Did we get in? We got invited.
We did get invited.
Okay. So at any rate, we applied and we had to attach these pictures. And a couple of days later, we got this approval back that said, congratulations, now you're invited and you can pay us to come to have dinner. So we did that, and we went to, we decided to get there a bit early because we're about an hour away from the city. We wanted to make sure we beat the traffic.
And if anybody knows anything about Washington, D.C., it can take you 45 minutes to get to the city, or it can take you 2.5 hours.
But it was a beautiful evening.
It was.
And the restaurant we went to had a courtyard outside, and we got there early enough to have a drink. And so we ordered drinks and ordered.
They had a really, really cool menu. All their drinks were very handcrafted. It wasn't just your typical vodka tonic. You couldn't, the vodka tonic had a name to it, and all the vodka was branded, and it came with all these like really interesting mixes of fresh like ingredients that would blend. So it was a very extensive menu. So Mr. Jones got this drink called Spring Flowers. And it was this lovely drink. Actually, if you go to our website, by the time we get the podcast actually up and posted, we're going to post pictures of us drinking our drinks. So Mr. Jones had this beautiful, it was a lavender colored
You already said this.
drink.
You don't have to say it again. I had the spring flower drink, and it was purple.
It was beautiful.
And you ordered.
My drink was called a hairy chest.
Yeah. Which had spices.
It was pineapple and habanero pepper and lime juice and some sort of really cool vodka. So it was awesome. It was spicy.
It was embarrassing, even worse, because when the bartender came, he set your drink in front of me, and I had to say, wait a minute, you need to flip
I got
those
the purple
around.
drink.
Ugh. How
But
embarrassing.
both drinks were amazing.
Yeah,
they were
they were
really,
good.
really tasty. So we're going to post pictures of us holding me holding the manly drink and Mr. Jones holding the lavender drink.
Right. So it was a beautiful night in Washington, D.C., and it was probably 75 degrees and no humidity, and we sat out and had those drinks. And the attire for the evening was, I had to wear a suit I didn't have to wear a tie, I just had to wear a suit.
It said sans tie, and Mr. Jones had to say, does that mean no tie? And I said, yes, dear, that means
do
no
I have
tie.
a sans tie?
And then ladies wore cocktail dresses.
Right. And there'll be a picture of you in your cocktail dress on the website too.
Holding my hairy chest drink. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how many people were going to be there. So at 8:00, when the reservation started, we finished our drinks and went inside, and we had a separate dining area, a private dining area inside the restaurant. And there were 22.
I think there were 12 couples plus the hosts.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there was 24 guests and the 2 hosts. And gosh, where do we start? I mean, first of all, when we walked in the room, we talked about some of the issues that we'd have with large crowds and mingling and meeting people. But when we walked in this room, there were probably 3/4 of the people were already there, and they were standing at one end. We immediately walked down to the end of the room, entered the circle that the people were standing in, introduced ourselves, and people just automatically turned to us and engaged with us.
Well, George and his partner were extremely gracious.
Right.
And immediately engaged us in conversation.
Right. So we had probably about 10 to 15 minutes worth of mingling and trying to meet people before they had us seated. So initially it was a very good start because everybody was really nice, really friendly. Nobody seemed too pretentious or really stuck up or anything like that. So I started to feel a little bit better about the crowd. And then we met George. We had talked to him on the phone beforehand, but we met George and Anne, and they were the host and the hostess. And he asked us to sit down, and they had put nameplates or name tags up at table settings. So he said, you need to find your name and then figure out the pattern. And so what he had done, which is really clever, and the table was wide. I mean, it was a really wide table and really long.
Well, yeah, it held 26 people.
Right. So what they did was they put Mrs. Jones on one side of the table, and I was on the opposite side. So she and I were facing each other. And then beside me on my left and right were 2 ladies, and then
their husbands were
next to you.
Yes.
So it was boy, girl, boy, girl.
But your partner was across from you.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and then George and Anne were at the head and the foot of the table.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. And I don't know how they decided who sat next to whom, but the ages were somewhat varied there. And we had a younger couple on one side of us and a couple about our age on the other side of us. And it was perfect.
Right.
It was perfect.
Yeah. So you could have conversations, really the easiest conversation because the size of the room was with the people next to you. Mm-hmm. So naturally, I got to know the lady on my left and the lady on my right, and you got to know the gentleman on your left and right, who were the spouses of the ladies I was. And then occasionally we would have cross conversation across the table, but you really had to kind of lean in because the table was so wide.
Yeah, it was.
And then every once in a while you'd go 2 people down and try to have a conversation. So anyway, they started bringing food. They brought... It
was a 5-course dinner paired with a wine for each course, and everything was amazingly lovely.
Right. So they brought out, believe it or not, the first appetizer were French fries, but of course they brought the French fries out in stainless steel cups.
With these incredible sauces that went with them.
Yeah, ketchup based and a cocktail sauce.
That was like that was like a pre-appetizer.
Yeah, that was one. Yeah.
Yeah, because then the appetizer was the tuna tartare.
Right. So that was the first course, was the tuna tartare. And I was wondering if you were going to eat that because Mrs. Jones doesn't like sushi.
I'm not a sushi person, but I decided to put my big girl panties on and I ate it. And it was really good.
Right.
Of course, the wine that was paired with it was perfect. So, it just...
Was that the Riesling? Or...
Yes,
yeah,
it
okay.
was.
So there was a Riesling paired with the tuna tartare. Mm-hmm. Then the second course was the lobster pot pie.
I can't believe we're talking about food on a lifestyle podcast, but this food was so good. It was the whole thing was just very sensual because the food was good. And of course the portions were very small, which is perfect because you were conversing. You didn't want to spend a lot of time chewing.
But you could tell the crust on this pot pie was just, it was made there.
There was a lot of moaning going on during the second course, and it had nothing to do with sex. And the lobster was so good.
The pieces of lobster in that pot pie were so big.
You had to
cut them with a knife. I don't know where they flew it from.
I don't know.
And then the sauce that it was in, and they had the pearl onions and potatoes. That was my favorite course. And then they paired with the Chardonnay.
Pot pie does not seem sexy, but it was.
Yeah, that was paired with a Chardonnay, a California Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
Then the third course was really good, but it was kind of boring in the grand scheme of things. It was chicken, right?
But it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Chicken with a sauce also. And we switched it to a lighter red wine with the chicken. Was it a rosé?
I think that was the Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir, right. And then the fourth course was the what?
The Wagyu.
Oh, Wagyu.
Wagyu.
Yeah, Wagyu beef.
Beef.
Right, and that's what this restaurant is known for, is their Wagyu beef, which is from Japan, and it's a ribeye, but it's really, really
indescribable.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. You have to Google it.
It makes American filet mignon seem tough.
Well, I had to Google it because they sent us the menu ahead of time, and I'm like, what's this Wagyu beef? So I Googled it so I would know what it was that I was eating, and it was almost like the tuna. It was almost raw. It was raw in the very center.
Well, it was rare, yeah.
Rare, but it was purple.
But it was super seared on the outside,
right.
So that brought out all that smoky flavor. It
and
was
then on
incredible.
the top of it was the foie gras, which I don't know that you realized that.
Yeah, I did. Again, I had my big girl panties on. Yeah.
And then they brought out, what was the red wine we had with that? But it was a darker, was it Spanish?
I don't know if it was a Cabernet Sauvignon. I don't know what it was.
But anyway, we had a darker red wine with that. And then the final course was a Snickers bar.
We said it was like a grown-up Snickers bar. It was one of those desserts that makes you moan a little bit. It was this chocolate pie that had some sort of peanut butter
pie,
goo.
It didn't have crust.
No, I don't know what it was.
Chunks of chocolate and peanut butter and caramel.
And it was really creamy and smooth.
Obviously, it was made there.
And they served it with a port.
Yes, a real port.
From Portugal. Yeah. It was incredible.
So that's the food part of it.
Now, we had to be there at 8:00. And of course, like Mr. Jones said, we mingled for a little while. So I don't know what time the food actually started being presented to us. But we left at 12. When we got in our car.
We're getting ahead.
I am getting ahead of ourselves. But when we got in our car after dinner was over, it was 12:15. So it took almost 4 hours to eat these 5 courses because the conversation was just wonderful. And the wait staff was very attentive, and they were very aware of the fact that we were a large group that was being very social, right. and they paced the dinner accordingly. Right.
So we thoroughly enjoyed the conversations on either side of us at dinner, and the conversations we had prior to dinner. It was clear that we were connecting with a lot of people there, and that was really a pleasant surprise. So
nobody there was pretentious or stuffy, and that was just so wonderful.
Right. So after dinner, people kind of started getting up and mingling around, and I ended up, Anne, George's co-host, came and was standing behind me, and she was talking to me and a couple other ladies, and I started asking her, what is the process? I said, the people here are tremendous, and I'm sure you got a lot of applications. So, how do you know who to choose, and what how do you do this? And she said, we've done this for a long time. We just know. So, that was kind of
I think they just have excellent intuition when it comes to this stuff.
So I guess by looking at profiles, which is what we're going to talk about in the next segment, but the way your profile is written in Cassidy or SLS, the pictures that you sent and how you answered the questions, they just know. And it was amazing. And she even made the point to say, look, a lot of our events are upscale, and they're a little bit more money than a lot of people like to pay. And she said, but it's not about the money, because we've had literally millionaires apply to our events, and we've turned them down because we don't want somebody that's stuffy or arrogant or thinks that they're better than anyone else. We want people that are real, genuine people.
But at the same time, they want to provide a quality event. And that's why you pay a little bit more than normal to go to these things. Right. Because, and this event was just extremely well put together.
It was. We had a wonderful time. I try to do a balanced review when we do things like this, and we've talked about places that we've been in the past, but I really can't think of anything that was
negative?
a negative
No,
out of the whole thing.
I can't think of one thing.
From the location to the valet parking to the cocktails to the we forgot to say it. So when the courses were served, there were 24 of us at the table. They would bring 12 waiters out at one time with 2 plates, and they choreographed the serving. So they would serve all the ladies at once, then they would turn and serve all the men at once. So the whole evening was just really just well put together.
It was.
Every detail was thought of, from the logistics to the room that we were in, to the wine that was paired with the food, to the dessert, the conversation, the people. So I guess what we're trying to say is, if you ever have the opportunity to apply to attend to one of these Do You Know George events, you're not going to be disappointed, because it was quite an experience.
And can I say, we haven't even talked about George and his host yet, or his hostess yet. They were extremely gracious, and were just very much aware of the fact that they were there to make everybody feel comfortable and welcome.
Right.
And to just make the night as seamless as possible. Right. And they just did an excellent job.
Yeah, and I made it a point to tell him that we were podcasters, and asked him if it was okay if we talked about this event.
Yeah.
And he gave us permission to do that, as long as we were discreet. And we think with it, we pretty much do that all the time. So, it was just a great conversation, very laid back, very easy to talk with. And so we're looking at, we're going to put a link to their website, the Do You Know George website, on our podcast show notes. And if you think you might be interested, take a look, because they're doing events all over the country. So this Just for Dinner, they're going to do in several other cities across the country.
I think I remember him mentioning Chicago, and a couple other cities.
There's a whole bunch of them.
The Just for Dinner part of it.
No, there's a whole bunch of Just for Dinners. But anyway, take a look if you're interested, and let us know what you think if you go there. And then he's got 3 or 4 trips planned. One to Napa, maybe I think next year they're going to Cuba.
Yeah,
and he was telling me about that.
New Orleans.
New Orleans, that's coming up. Right. So they fill up fast, but I think there are some slots left at these. So if you're interested,
and what Mr. Jones and I like is, like we said, there were 12 couples plus George and Ann. So, there were 26 people at this event, and that just works for us. We told you that, a couple of months ago, we went to that big event up in Northern Virginia, and there were like 250 people there, and we were struggling. It was overwhelming. It was loud, and there were so many people, and we didn't know anybody, and we just struggled. So I think as, we continue through this journey together and are trying to find our place where we fit, I think, not necessarily, to be this exclusive and upscale, but I think the size of the event was just in our sweet spot.
Right.
So, and I think most of his events are somewhat on the smaller side.
Yes. I think it's like
30 to 50 couples.
30 or 50, depending on the size of the venue.
Yeah.
Right. So it's small enough that if you're there for the weekend, you're going to get to meet everybody on a surface level, and then probably several people that you connect with. You'll have time to get to know better.
And we did manage to meet a couple people a little bit better, but we'll share that with you later on.
So at 12:15, when they did
the wait staff started turning off the lights.
Yeah, they turned off the lights, and they said, "Sir, we've already brought your car around." So I think that was an indicator. So we left with another couple and went out to a nightclub, and we're going to come back.
Another couple and another lady.
Yes, don't give everything away.
Well,
we're going to come back to that.
Stay tuned
in our snapshot.
Yeah.
So anyway, we know George now.
We do know George.
Yeah. So when somebody
that's a really good thing.
Yeah. So we're very, very happy with the way that it turned out, and again, recommend that you look into that.
And we are looking forward to future events with George.
Right. And so when we come back, our next segment, we're going to talk about Who the Fuck Are You?
That's right.
Profiles. We'll be right back.
Okay, so profiles. That is our topic of the evening.
Right.
We have, Mr. Jones and I have run into some interesting profiles lately as we have been meeting couples online. We really depend on Cassidy and SLS. Those are the two online dating websites that we use in our area. I think SDC is a very popular site, but I think it's more of a southwestern site or a southern site.
Well, the other one
it's
around
not very
here
popular.
is the adult.
Is it adult playground or what
Yeah,
is it?
it's
APG,
yeah, but
whatever that stands for.
Yeah, I don't have time to manage a third site, but
I
a lot of
know.
people around here are on APG.
Yeah, but we're pretty much sticking with Cassidy because we like Cassidy, we like the website, we like the way it's designed, and we have had very good experiences with the people that we have met on Cassidy. The problem we have with Cassidy in the Mid-Atlantic area where we live is that there's really not that many people on it. I think it's more, I don't know, it's more regional towards, I know it's based out of like Las Vegas, so I think it's more maybe popular out west. SLS is hugely popular where we live, and we have met lots and lots of great people on there.
But I hate SLS. I mean, I hate the website. I hate their business
And he doesn't
model.
use the word hate very often. But
I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. They do business like they have a monopoly, and to a certain extent, at the current time, they do. But the way that they treat businesses that work with them and their website is so outdated that as soon as somebody comes along that gets this right, I don't think SLS is going to be around very long just by the way that they do business. But that's
maybe that can be our venture when we retire, honey.
That's my personal opinion. But we're on SLS as a matter of just so because we have to.
Out of necessity, yes.
It's a necessity for us to do that.
And we have met some lovely people on SLS.
Right. So how do we want to start talking about profiles? We got into local dating just recently, and so profiles have become a little bit more of a central focus for us, and we keep our personal Cassidy and SLS profile separate from we do have a We Got a Thing profile on Cassidy, and we've said that before, and many of you are part of that community. But if you were to look at our profile, what you would see is who we are. I mean, they all say there's always pictures, and there's always a place for your age and for your preferences and things like this. But we decided to be open and honest and say, look, we've been married 30 years, just like we do on the podcast. This is who we are. We've been married 30 years, new to the lifestyle, interested in relationships. I describe you, you describe me.
Right.
We describe the people that we're looking for, and we're trying to be transparent and put enough information out there so that when somebody stops in to look and to read, that they get a very good idea of who we are. So
not only what we look like, but we want to get our personalities out there, and basically we want to get our objectives out there. I mean, Mr. Jones and I think, if you've listened to any of our previous podcasts, we are not into mindless sex. We want to become friends with the people that we play with, not necessarily everybody that we play with, but we need some sort of connection with somebody before we decide to play with them.
Right.
And that's where we are right now. We're new. We just, need that comfort level.
Right.
And that has been the unexpected pleasure of entering the lifestyle, is some of the friends we've made have been, way deeper friendships than we anticipated.
Yeah, and I mean, as a disclaimer, we're still working at this. We haven't perfected our profile.
No, we don't at all.
And we're not judging other people, but we're going to share with you some of the things that we chose to do with our profile. And one of them is we sat down together when we created the profile.
Right.
So we literally, both of us sat in front of even though I'm the one that manages most of that now, the correspondence and the communication and posting pictures, we sat down together, and you and I both grabbed the keyboard back from each other, and we worked on that for about an hour.
Oh, at least.
To get it to where we were
Well,
both.
and we have edited it and updated it several times over the past just year that
Well,
we've
right.
been on it.
Well, we just put that we like kissing on it. You mentioned that.
I know. Why didn't we think about it a year ago?
Yeah. So I don't know. There are certain things about profiles. We might as well just kind of get into it. So I think one of the number one things, and this is probably something that you could speak to, is no pictures of the guys.
Oh my gosh. Right. So we'll get a flirt from somebody on Cassidy or somebody on SLS will send us an email and kind of reaching out to us, and you initially look at their profile and the words might be okay. And then there's a couple pictures of the lady and there will be 0 pictures of the guy. 0. I mean, and I understand people not wanting to show their faces on these websites. Mr. Jones and I have jobs where it's not a really good idea to put yourself out there as well. So we understand that. But at the same time, I need to see something of the gentleman. Because if there's no pictures of the guy, one thing that's going to be assumed is that there's no pictures for a reason.
Wow.
Either he's, extremely unattractive, or he's overweight, or he's just not fit and healthy. Or maybe he's just not interested.
Right. And you don't know
that's
what
the
it is.
scariest part of all. He's not interested.
Right.
And this is a one-sided deal.
Right. So I made the mistake one time. I found a profile on SLS that I really liked, and not just the words. And look, I'm a guy. So there were, the lady was beautiful, and she put some really nice pictures on. And I told you I was going to reach out, and I reached out.
And I was okay with that because she was beautiful and they did have a good profile.
Right. And then she responded a few days later and opened up their pictures. And then when you saw a picture of him, I mean, it was a disappointment. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it became clear why she didn't put his pictures on there.
Right.
So, I don't, he is what he is. So you got to be honest. Either you work.
Just put yourself out there. Have the confidence
exactly
to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
If you're confident about it, that makes you more attractive.
Right. And not only
if you're hiding something, then that's going to make people suspicious. And then when you do see something at face value, it's going to give you a negative impact. The impact is going to be negative versus, okay, well, I can work with that because he's comfortable in his own skin and he's got a great personality, and let's move forward. But when you're hiding,
right, and you still catch me doing that, because every once in a while I'll show you a profile and I go, hey, what do you think about this one? And then I'll go all the way through and you say, there's no pictures of the guy, and I'm like, shit, I didn't even notice. But anyway, that's pretty much, we just click the back button when we get to a profile and there's no pictures of the guy. I mean, so
don't be ashamed of yourself. You are who you are. And to me, personality is at least 50% of the traction I have for a gentleman.
Right.
So you don't have to be perfect, but you have to accept who you are and put yourself out there.
Right. And, that kind of leads into the pictures. Speaking of no pictures for men, because
this is so subjective.
Yeah, we went out with a couple after looking at their profile and looking at their pictures, at both male and female pictures. And then when we got to dinner with them, they didn't look anything like,
it was almost hard. We had not met them in person before. It had only been through the online dating site.
Right.
So they walked in the door and we were like, is that them? That kind of looks like them.
Can't be them.
Can't be them. Their pictures were dated.
Yeah.
And maybe photoshopped a little bit.
Well, I don't know. And then and we had a good time. And that's the thing. If they would have put their real pictures out there,
it would have been fine.
It would have been fine.
We probably still would have gone out with them.
Yeah. So not only did we have to say, oh man, they're misrepresenting themselves. But as soon as they sat down, the first thing that they said was, oh yeah, well, you probably noticed our pictures. That was about 20 or 30 pounds ago. I don't know exactly what the words were, but
it was a few years and 30 pounds ago. Those were the words.
And the thing about it was, setting the pictures aside, if they would have taken pictures of the way they were then,
right,
we probably still would have gone out with them. And if they had the confidence as a couple, you were just saying, the attractiveness comes from all those other things combined.
Right. It's personality. I mean, hello, we have been married 30 years. Y'all can probably figure out how old we are. We are not spring chickens. So we're not looking for Ken and Barbie. but we want people to be themselves and to be comfortable in their own skin. That is what makes people attractive in my mind.
Right. Okay. So.
Okay. Sorry. I feel like I'm preaching.
No, these are just issues that we've dealt with.
I know.
You know.
Some of them are fairly new.
Okay.
I mean, and fresh.
Okay. So I have a confession to make.
Okay. What?
You know, a couple of months ago, you asked me, had I ever measured myself?
I don't think I've ever measured you.
And I said no. I'd never measured myself before. Okay, so for this episode, just to do some research,
Okay.
I measured myself because this goes back to the profile.
This is why we do a podcast.
Because, you know, you'll read the profile and the lady will say, I like men who are well hung, or I like, if you're not bringing 8 inches to the party, you know.
Oh, no, I know who you're talking about. And she only said 7, honey. Only 7.
7 plus or
Right.
whatever. And so right away, as soon as I see something like that, I mean, you know what it reminds me of? It's like being at Disney World and you got to be this tall to ride this ride. And I'm standing there in line and I'm getting closer and closer to Mickey Mouse and I'm going, I know I'm
shrinking
tall
and shrinking
I know
and shrinking,
enough.
right?
I got to stand up straight. I got to do this because I want to ride this ride. And that's what comes to my mind. And I can imagine is coming into a bedroom with a couple and she says, take them down. I got my tape measure here. I mean, I can't, as soon as I see that, it doesn't matter. So anyway, so that's what I think of when I see, you know, somebody who says you need to come with, you know, this many inches or this many, and you know what, if that's your thing, that's your thing. But as soon as I see that, I'm like, I got to click, close that. Cause that just freaks me out when I think I got to have, but anyway, so back to measuring myself. So I'm not going to tell you how long because the point of the matter is, what's your methodology? You do it from the back. You can do it from the side. You can do it from the front. You could do
That's a really good point. I never thought about that.
Okay, well, let me tell you. There's an 1.5 variance depending on how I was measuring myself. So I don't know how do you measure?
Did you Google it? I mean, there must be a standard.
The point is that I'm trying to make as a guy, when I see in a profile that a female is looking for X number of inches or somebody, I instantly just, I mean, it's like a turtle going into my, I said, well, I'm not going to measure up to that, or I don't want to be measured. And so here's the deal. When you meet me or when you meet a guy, it's about how my sense of humor, my personality,
Absolutely.
me flirting with you, me
Absolutely.
looking into your eyes, the way that I touch you, the way that we talk, the way that we dance together, you know, the way that we interact, you know, the way that if we do play, I can sense that I know what you like and what you don't like and do the right things at the right time and don't do the wrong things. Those, to me, in my mind, are so much more important. Of course, I'm not a woman, but
I am a woman, and let me tell you what. I'm thinking of 2 guys in particular that I met last Friday night at the Do You Know George dinner, and both of them were just personality. They were both adorable,
Right.
Gorgeous. I mean, not like Hollywood gorgeous, but they had great personalities and gorgeous smiles and just engaging personalities. And I mean, I don't care what their package looks like. It would work for me because those guys were just nice guys and they were just so much fun to talk to. That turns me on.
Right.
I don't care how long your cock is. Actually, if it's too long, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm more about quality than quantity. But again, that is me. We're all different, but
Okay.
so.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what the outcome of that was.
I'm going to get him to tell me afterwards, ladies.
No, you're not.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, no, that's.
We've been married 30
I-
years and I've never measured
I
it.
erased that file. Yeah.
Oh.
Because I never really thought about it until I got into the lifestyle, and all of a sudden it became a requirement.
Okay,
that
I
has
think-
to be of a certain size.
If you've looked at our website, we posted a photo last month that I
yes.
etched in the like frosted ice on the martini bar on the celebrity cruise ship we were
Yeah,
on.
so go back at our
And
website.
it said
Yeah.
Mrs. J, heart number 3.
Right.
And we said, stay tuned to episode 9 to find out. Okay, number 3 is Mr. Jones's cock. That I have named him number 3. And there's a reason for that.
Right.
It goes back to, where were we?
We were in Punta Cana.
We were in Punta Cana on vacation. I think that was our first...
It was like 4 years ago.
Our first all-inclusive, adults-only resort vacation.
Right.
It was magical.
Right.
So we had, gone shopping, and I bought Mr. Jones these like sexy. They were normal underwear, but they were like sexy, silky boxer briefs. I guess I had bought them for him right before we went on vacation. Well, when I buy new clothes, I wash them first. Mr. Jones doesn't always do that. So we had like showered and kind of gotten a little bit dressed after our day out in the sun, and we decided that we had enough time to play around before dinner. So we had hopped back in bed, and he had these new underwear on, and I had like slid his underwear down, and I was starting to play with him. I don't remember if I just had my hand on you or if I was like putting my mouth on your cock or whatever. But all of a sudden there was this sticker.
Well, yeah, but before you go any further.
Okay, what?
When you're down there doing that and
Yeah.
you start giggling, that doesn't normally bode well for me. Because, and we were just talking about size. So now you're down there and you're giggling. And then, so you know how when you get a pair of underwear sometimes and it says inspected by...
There's that little tiny
Number
sticker,
3.
the little square sticker.
So there was this little square adhesive sticker
stuck to his cock.
And all the thing it said was number 3.
That's all it said. It didn't say inspected by,
No,
it just said number 3.
Right.
So I'm like, what is stuck to you? So I stop what I'm doing and I pick it off. And I see this number 3, and we just both laughed about it. He's like, it must have been from my new underwear that I didn't bother to throw in the laundry to get washed before we came on vacation.
Right.
So we were laughing. So it said number 3 on it. So now his cock that's his name now, number 3.
Yeah. So thanks for that. Now,
Mrs. J, heart number 3.
So until this moment, this was like just between the two of us. Now you've told everybody.
I know. That's always been our secret thing. So
Right.
we just shared it with, a couple thousand of our closest friends.
Right. Should we get back to profiles?
I don't even know what I was talking about now. I can only think about number 3. Whew.
Yeah. So, but let's get back to
gotten
profiles.
warm in here.
So back to pictures. We were talking about pictures.
Yes.
Whether you choose to put face pictures up or not is certainly up to you. We understand, discretion.
Some of us have careers where it's a little bit more of a risk than another,
Right. So, the way that we do our personal site is we pay. We're paying customers for both SLS and Cassidy. So,
and both SLS and Cassidy have levels of photo galleries, levels of security within the photo galleries.
So the way that we chose to do it is if you have a free account, you can't see our faces. But if you've paid and you're certified, then you can see our faces, because we want to see people and we're comfortable at that level with showing our faces.
Well, also it's kind of awkward to like make a connection with somebody on an online dating site, and then you go to meet them for dinner and you don't know what their faces look like.
Right.
It's hard to find them in a restaurant.
I kind of get that. But as long as there's the guy and the girl and you see their bodies. But at some point in time, if you're going to meet, you really need to say, hey, we need to know who we're looking for here. So, send us some face pictures. And then here's another thing. I don't know how many times and this happens in SLS a lot, just recently. I was reading a profile and it said, we are just sticking our toes in the water and we are looking for somebody to help us grow through this adventure. And then it says, I've been on this site since 2003.
Right.
That was 12 years ago.
Right.
So at some point in time,
your toes have been in the water
your toes
for 12
have been in the
years.
water, so update your profile.
Yeah, they're going to be a little prunish by now.
And then what I think of, if that's what you're putting, then your age is you're probably 12 years older.
Well, that's
true than what you had at your age, and how many pounds
thought about that.
lighter. So it's a dead giveaway when it says that we're just now getting into this, and you've established your online profile 2 or 3 or 4, or in this case 12 years ago, and they were just sticking their toes in the water.
Right.
So again, that just goes back to, as soon as I see that, I'm like, click back. I don't.
Right.
Because you don't know really what you're getting into. then. And of course, real ages, accurate height and weight. And let me see, we talked about pictures, and what else do we need to talk about?
Well, just updating your pictures.
Right.
You know, like we have some pictures that are probably maybe
3 years old, but we have the years on them.
But we put the years on them.
Yeah,
so,
but we have new pictures too. We have pictures
Yes.
from 2013, 2014, and 2015.
Right. So like every time we go on vacation, we try to come home and you know, get at least 1 or 2 pictures up so that, you know, people can see what we currently look like, you know, for better or worse.
Right.
You know, we don't want people to be surprised when they run into us in a restaurant because, you know, again, we are not 20 years old anymore.
Right.
So we're not ashamed of that, but you know, we are who we are, and that's how it is for everybody.
Right.
You are who you are.
So here's a good test for you. This is what we did. Speaking of ages, because we're in our early 50s and we have that on our profile. Think about the people that you've played with, that you've met at a club or met at a resort or met face to face, and then you've gone back to look at their profile. I can't tell you how many people that we've met at a party or an event and we have just hit it off with and had a great time and sometimes played with. And then we go back and look at their profile and it says nobody over the age of 45.
Or nobody less than 7 inches.
Yes. So I'm like, okay. So that's fine that you say that on your profile, but what you should do is, or what, I'm not going to tell you what to do. What we do, I mean, that's the way I've learned, because and they make you put these parameters in. And we did that remember when we had a hard time. I mean, we've been with people as young as 30 and as old as almost 60. And at first, the younger ones were intimidating to us because we were like, oh, well, we got kids that age.
Right.
And so we had our age range because we weren't comfortable thinking about that. But once we experienced it, then we changed. We went back and we said, you know what? It's not a big deal. It's not as big of a deal as I thought it was. Because when you connect with somebody and you get in bed with them, all of a sudden the age doesn't matter anymore.
Right,
30, 40, 50, 60, whatever. So what we've learned through this is that when we meet somebody out and about and we end up connecting with them, whether we play with them or not, and we look at their profile, I always ask myself, would I have picked this person out as a potential match for us?
You know, a lot of times we would not.
And we would not. Right. And so that tells you the value of the profile to begin with. So even if your profile is filled out and updated and pictures and everything, the thing that I've learned is it's about the person. It's about the person. That's why when people reach out to us, you know, obviously we look for, well, this brings up another thing. So we got somebody, I think I told you about this. Somebody locally reached out and said, hey, your profile looks like ours. Want to meet? And I looked at their profile. It looked nothing like ours.
I know, that was so confusing.
And so you know what I thought of? Okay, the guy's online. He just wants to have sex with you. I mean, that's probably wrong, but that's the first, because there wasn't anything in our profiles that was in common with theirs.
Right.
And, you know, and what else happened recently? So somebody, back
the couple with no pictures.
Back to the pictures again. So this couple reached out to us and they said, would like to meet you. That's it. Not hello, not who we are, would like to meet you. So I go in, I look at their profile. There's no pictures of him. And their profile description is about 2 paragraphs.
No, 2 sentences.
2 sentences, right?
Yeah.
So
Mr. Jones replies and he says, you have us at a slight disadvantage.
I said, yeah, that's exactly what I said.
You did.
I said, you know, thank you for reaching out to us. It appears with your limited profile and pictures, you have us at a slight disadvantage. Would you care to share a little bit more about yourselves? And I never heard anything back. So right away, you know.
That was the profile that triggered the thought of doing an episode on profiles.
Was it?
Yes. That was when you said, we need to do an episode on profiles.
I'm like, who the fuck are you?
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
You know, you got to, I mean, you can't, it's got to be more than just
It was literally 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah. And then when
And no
and I
pictures of
thought I
him.
was pretty polite and
You
know,
were.
I could have just
You were.
deleted the thing, but I said, you have us at a disadvantage. Give us some pictures and more about yourselves and we'll be able to answer you.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear nothing back. So anyway, so
We're getting ready to go away for Memorial Day weekend. And we've tried to search around and find profiles locally where we're going to the beach. And that's been an interesting challenge. And we haven't really gotten anywhere.
yeah, we'll get into that later. I mean, there's so many things about SLS and Cassidy that we haven't even begun to delve into yet. I mean, there's events, there's rendezvous, there's meetups, there's hot dates, there's, you can book travel. So tonight, I think the thing that we wanted to focus on was just the profile itself, because what we're learning is it's not as easy. And of course, we never used online dating services. So all of this is new to us. So again, I'm not bashing anybody out there. We're more laughing at ourselves because we're kind of naive, coming into this. And I'm thinking that, oh, well, I'm honest and open, so everyone else is going to be. And I continuously am disappointed by people. And then I kick myself like, why do you believe this? Why are you doing that? And also, who manages the site? We went to a meet and greet not too long ago. We told you all about this meet and greet in Northern Virginia where there were a couple hundred people. And we had connected. I'm the one that manages all of our websites. And I had looked at the RSVP list, found a couple that looked interesting, reached out to them, emailed with them, said we were going to be there. Would they be interested in chatting? And I didn't know at the time, but it was he, emailed back and said, yeah, we're going to be here. Here's my phone number, text me. And we texted back and forth and we walked in and we said, okay, they said, we're standing over here. We went to meet him. We walked up to meet him. And when he turned to introduce us to his wife,
she was clueless.
She had no idea that we had been communicating with him. So again, here I am, naive, thinking that people communicate like we do, and it's just not the case. Now, they're a great couple, and we ended up, really enjoying our conversation with them. But
she was at a disadvantage. Because you had kept me up to speed on everything,
right?
And she was just really trying to play catch up,
right?
Throughout the evening.
Right. So what you and I do is, so that leads us probably to the last point that we want to make about this, and that's who manages the site. Because if you're both going to sit down and look at this, it could take a lot of time.
Right.
And I've gotten better at being able to pick people out and to respond. And then just about every night or every other night at dinner, I'll say.
Well, we have the advantage of having an empty nest. So Mr. Jones and I eat dinner alone. When we get home from work and we've come home from the gym or running or whatever we do, it's usually just the two of us,
right? So
I can say, okay, so how did things go today? Do we need to have a lifestyle meeting? And then he brings me up to speed on everything, on both the we got a thing stuff and then the personal stuff.
Right. So we communicate, and then I show you and I read you everything verbatim.
Right.
And then, we share the Twitter account. You can always open that up and look at it, but I manage most of that and I manage all of that. And so, but you and I talk just about every day or every other day.
Every day, I think.
Yeah. Especially when somebody, and that's okay. So here's another thing I just thought of. So there was a couple that reached out to us and they said, hey, I don't even want to get into the message, but they said, hey, we heard about your podcast. We know we're friends with you and whatever. We'd like, if you're open to getting together, let's get together. And so I showed it to you. And a day later I replied and said, sure. Well, 2 weeks goes by and I don't hear anything. And so I followed up and I said, well, what's going on? Now I know that there's normally a delay, but when somebody reaches out to me or to us and we respond, you should be ready to respond right back, because as the days go by, I'm thinking, okay, one of them didn't know.
Right.
Or there's something else going on. But normally,
what do we do to make them change their mind?
Yeah, normally I think 2 or 3 or 4 days, because, people do have to communicate. So we're not expecting an answer right away, but especially when somebody reaches out to us and then we respond and then we don't get a response back, that's kind of a red flag too. So what else did we miss anything else, or does that pretty much?
I think that's
I think we beat this to death. And
Oh, no. I know what I wanted to talk about.
oh yeah.
So back to the pictures. So you have to make a decision about what kind of pictures you're going to put on your profile. And again, we're not being judgmental, but you just, as you are creating this profile, if you're fairly new to the lifestyle or you're updating your profile, you need to have an awareness of what kind of message are you sending by the types of photos you put out there. Because sometimes we look at profiles and you can tell they've had professional pictures done and they're very sensual and just amazing settings and just incredible pictures of both the lady and the gentleman. And then sometimes you will open up some private photos on a site, whether it's SLS or Cassidy or whatever you use in your region. And it's like all genital shots. And, one or two of those is kind of interesting, but, it kind of gets to the point where you've seen one and you've seen them all.
Right.
And I want to know more about that person than what their cock looks like or what their pussy looks like or whatever.
What the inside of their
pussy.
pussy.
Yeah, right. I mean, your tits are gorgeous, but what about the rest of you? And, that sometimes you can use the photos to convey to people, what kind of hobbies you have. Are you a beach person? Are you a lake person? Are you a, city person or whatever? And sometimes you just don't get that sense from somebody because it's all about the genital shots.
Right.
And if that's what you're trying to portray to somebody, that's good.
Right.
But you just need to have an awareness that that's the messages you're sending out. It's a very sexual, this is what I'm about message, not this is the kind of places I like to go to rendezvous, to enjoy myself with my spouse or, with my lifestyle friends. Just when you kind of take it out of context, it can really send a message.
Yeah, and I know that everyone coming into this, if you're just now getting into it, everyone has to make a decision. One of the risks is if I tell too much about myself or put my face out there, somebody's going to recognize me. And when you choose to get into this lifestyle, there is always that risk. You have to decide. It's a personal decision how much you want to put out there. And obviously, for us doing a podcast, we're putting more out there than a lot of people because our voices are out there. But that's something that, that we've talked about and we've decided to do, and we'll probably podcast about that later. But that's a part of it. But, there's a risk reward with anything else. The more you put yourself out there, the better chance that you're going to meet somebody that's like you and that you're going to have a quality experience. And I can speak for the both of us, I think, in saying that we are much more comfortable now than we were a year and a half ago when we first put our profile out there and we were scared to death that people were going to find us. So, you've got to make the decision and we understand because we were there, but as you grow your profile with you,
Yes.
update your profile.
I guess that's a message we're trying to put out there tonight is don't let your profile become stagnant.
Right.
Be aware of what you've got out there and make sure that is what you want to have out there.
Right.
And keep it updated, keep it fresh, keep your pictures fresh, keep your message fresh.
Yeah.
As you progress. I mean, people progress through, soft swap, full swap, voyeur, exhibitionist, wherever you're starting. Make sure that your profile is moving with you through your journey, however fast or slow your journey's going.
Right. Well said. Okay. Well,
okay.
Let's just wrap that up, and we'll be back in a few minutes to talk about snapshots and close out episode 9.
So our snapshots take us back to our Just for Dinner at our Do You Know George event that we had last week. So after the dinner was over, and we all got kicked out of the restaurant. We ended up having an opportunity to go out to a nightclub with the couple that sat next to us, and then the single girl who was there, single because her husband had to travel at the last minute, so she decided to come on out to the event solo instead of letting their ticket just kind of fall by the wayside.
Right.
So we hopped in the car and we went, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than a couple miles away.
Right.
And went to this nightclub in DC that Mr. Jones and I would have never gone to if it had just been the two of us.
Yeah, we're not really nightclub people to begin with.
No, and we would have, of course, never been able to figure out that this would have been a cool place to go. It was a brownstone on the corner. It was like 5 stories tall, and when we got there, it was probably about 12:30 at night, and there were probably like 30 people outside. And there was a bouncer at the door. You had to climb a flight of stairs to get up to the door, and there was a bouncer there. And
it was a happening place.
It was a happening place. So anyway, we just busted right on in there and found this, like I guess it was like on the 3rd floor of it. There was this really beautiful bar.
Yeah, they had quite an extensive martini menu.
Yeah.
And we found a table at the bar, or a table in front of the bar.
Right.
And it was really crowded, and we ordered martinis.
Yeah, the 5 of us crammed around this tiny little table. So
right.
that was kind of fun to be crammed in with beautiful, sexy people.
Right. So the gentleman and I decided to get up and go exploring, and we went 2 more floors up and found that there was music. And so we came back downstairs and fetched you all. Well, we finished our drinks and then dragged the three ladies back upstairs.
Oh, because you had to totally drag us. We did not want to go dance.
Yeah. Right.
No, so we went upstairs, and it was really cool because, they had a little dance floor. But again, this was a townhouse in the middle of the city, and it wasn't a very wide townhouse. It was tall. It was 5 stories, but each level was like kind of small.
Right.
So the dance floor was small, and it was really crowded when we first got up there.
Right.
So we kind of had to wedge our way, kind of through and create a spot for the 5 of us.
Right. Again, which is one of the reasons I really don't like dancing to begin with, because the dance floor is packed. You gotta like elbow people to find some space, and so I wasn't really very excited about it to begin with.
No, not at all.
But that changed.
Yes, it did change through the night. Like, this was a first for Mr. Jones and I, as far as dancing goes. Usually I get the obligatory slow dance at a wedding, or Mr. Jones will dance with me at Desire. But you can still tell that it's more of he's doing it because I want to do it and not because he really wants to get out there and bust a move.
Right. So anyway, we danced. The dance floor was crowded. We ended up staying on the dance floor for probably
a couple hours.
Maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very strange.
We were sweaty.
Yeah, we were hot. We were sweaty.
Because you still had your suit on.
Yeah, and as the evening progressed, fewer and fewer people were on the dance floor, and we kept going back to the bar to get water. I mean, all of us.
Yeah, we were done drinking alcohol at that point. We were just drinking water like fish,
right?
Because it was hot in there, and we were overdressed, and we were definitely exerting ourselves.
Yeah, and then it became apparent that the way that we were dancing, other people were noticing, and it was getting late. So the combination of things, the dance floor started to clear out, fairly soon after we started, and we did a lot of dancing, and
the 5 of us had become very comfortable with each other. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
For a vanilla dance club, yes.
Yeah.
We were having a good time, and we were all just dancing with each other. It didn't really matter who was dancing with whom at that point in time. We were just enjoying the music.
Right. So we danced for a couple of hours. We ended up closing the place down, and then we, to kind of close out the narrative of this part of the evening, we drove them back to their hotel, and by this time it was 2:30 in the morning because we didn't get home until 3.
Yeah, because I think the wait staff came around at about 2:15 and started tapping everybody on the shoulder and saying last call. Right.
And so we didn't play, and I don't even really think it would have been possible. I mean, it was so late and we had been drinking and dancing. And
Okay, well, we didn't play as in go back to the hotel and have
Right,
sex, but
right.
I was doing some playing on the dance floor. I'm not gonna lie.
So the end of the kind of descriptive narrative is we finished dancing. We took them back to the hotel. We came home and we got home at 3:45 in the morning, and we just passed out.
We were done.
And that was the
yeah.
end of the evening. However, our snapshots both take place on the dance floor. So we want to go
Yes.
back to the dance floor and give you a little bit more of a descriptive narrative of these two snapshots. So why don't you go first?
Well, I think yours kind of went first in the timeline.
Okay.
So I think we were. I mean, you can kind of
Okay.
pick up, but
Well, there were 5 of us, which, and the dance floor started to empty out, like I was saying, and it was really hot. And after a while, the lady I was dancing with ended up taking my jacket off, which I don't know why I didn't do that sooner. And I untucked my shirt and I felt good at that point in time, better because I was cool enough.
and she kind of made a show of taking your jacket off.
Yeah.
She kind of stripped you. It was very sexy.
Right. So what was going on is that at one point in time, she and I were dancing, and she had her back to me, and she had her ass kind of rubbing against my crotch.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
There was no kind of.
And then the other single female was dancing in front of her.
Yeah.
So both ladies were dancing with me, well, in front of me. One was against me. And then you and the other gentleman were going at it. I'm not even quite sure what was going on over there, but there was this moment when I realized we were the only ones on the dance floor, and I had been dancing for 2 hours, and this almost sex was going on, through her clothes on the dance floor. And it finally dawned on me, this is what dirty dancing is. Okay, I'm a slow learner. But it was a combination of all of that, the dancing, the sweatiness, the bodies rubbing together, and the fact that we were the only ones on the dance floor.
And you had 2 really hot girls dancing with you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then you two were going at it, and of course I got a glimpse of that as well, and he was getting charged up dancing
No
with
kidding.
you. And
I was crazy.
yeah, so it was that moment when I was like, all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh, this is what they mean by dirty. I think I like dancing.
You think you like
Yeah,
it?
I think I like it. I
It
mean,
looked like you were having a pretty good time.
but even at Desire, I mean, we danced a lot at Desire, but that dance floor is usually so crowded, and the chemistry that the 5 of us had, I think, really made the difference.
Yeah.
Everybody was just really, by that point in the evening, we all knew each other. We had had great conversation. We had alcohol. We had all the ingredients necessary.
Full bellies of yummy
Yeah.
food, and so we had it all.
So I'm here to say that I'm now a fan of Dirty Dancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my snapshot.
So I was having to entertain myself with this sexy guy while Mr. Jones was engaged with the 2 ladies. So I was making the best of it, and let me just say, like Mr. Jones said, we didn't go back to the hotel and play that night, but I pretty much had sex on the dance floor with a pair of suit pants on and a cocktail dress, and that was really the only thing that kind of kept us from getting arrested, because it was hot. I was so just charged up and turned on, and at the same time, like, really sexually frustrated, because I knew that we were in this like normal vanilla nightclub bar scene, and we had to behave ourselves, because I just wanted to kiss him so bad. But I could tell that people could tell who, kind of who was with whom. And I didn't know how far I felt like pushing things that night. So I tried to be on my best behavior, but oh my gosh, it was so hard, because he was putting some moves on me, and it was really, really fun. So while all this was going on, my snapshot is, like Mr. Jones said, the place had started to clear out because it was getting late, and there were like these, as we were like doing all this crazy dancing, and I looked around at one point, as I was like grinding up against this other guy. And there were like 6 guys lining the bar area. I don't know where their wives or girlfriends or dates or whatever were. It was just 6 guys kind of just standing around like a horseshoe shaped bar area, and they were watching us. And when I noticed that, it's like the exhibitionist in me came out, and then that made me even more charged up and turned on, because I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Because they're probably trying to figure out what the hell is going on. You know, there's this couple, and then there's this other couple, and then there's this single girl, and everybody's dancing with who belongs to whom.
Who came? Yeah, how did they, what's going on?
And
here?
I could tell it was probably kind of confusing, because, you know, Mr. Jones and I would dance together. It wasn't like if we had kind of like, you know, split up into 2 teams. It was really the 5 of us. So, you know, then Mr. Jones and I would start dancing together, and Mr. Jones was doing a little dirty dancing with me. And then that had me really charged up, because that's really like the most erotic dance experience we've ever had together.
Yeah.
So it was just really fun. And then to see those guys watching us, and you could almost just see the wheels turning in their heads, and some of them, you know, you could kind of tell they were like, damn, I wonder if it'd be okay if we came and joined in. And actually earlier in the night, there was a guy that tried to join in with us, but then I think he
didn't last very long.
No, he didn't last very long. So I don't know if I scared him off, or maybe I just wasn't his type or whatever. So it was a really fun night. And then to have the little like groupies watching us made it just even better.
Yeah, so you were exhibitionist dancing.
Yes. Having sex with clothes on.
Yeah, thanks to our new friends. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that again. It was really a great evening all together. And it all culminated because of how it started, you know, with the dinner for George, and led eventually into that. So it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to some more events in the future with the Do You Know George group. Yep.
So a couple of things we want to discuss real quickly before we sign off. Last month, on our last podcast, we talked about an event. We went to Catalyst Con, and we talked about a session that we went to
with Dr. Zana.
Dr. Zana, and a lot of the information that we talked about, we put on as a link to the website last time. Well, she sent us an email after the podcast and asked if we would do her a favor. And she's asking if we'll pass along to our listeners the opportunity to participate in an online sex study. And it's a survey that takes about 20 minutes. And I'm going to put the URL, the link to it on our website, but it's onlinesexstudy.org. And what she's trying to do, she and a couple of her colleagues, they're trying to understand, well, let me just read. We're trying to understand our communities and their strengths and weaknesses, and then share that knowledge with the world, hopefully dispelling many stereotypes and myths about who we are and what we do. So if you've been to a play party in the U.S. in the past year and are over 18, we want to hear from you. All genders and sexual orientations are eligible. The anonymous survey takes between 15 and 40 minutes, depending on how many portions you choose to answer. You don't have to do it all at once. You can come back as many times without losing the data. And then if you do that, you're going to get a discount code for a purchase at Adam and Eve online. And then enter, if you choose to, there's a raffle for everyone who does the survey, and they're going to give out some $50 Amazon gift cards. So I did take the survey, and it is about specifically about house parties that you've been to. So if that interests you, it would be great for us to. There's not a lot of data out there in the from lifestyle, and this would be an opportunity for us to give back to Dr. Zana and her colleagues. So anyway, we'll put a link to that on the website. Then the last thing that we wanted to talk about before we wrap up, we've been sharing some feedback from our listeners, and we want to continue to encourage you to do that, where we want to, I don't know, you described this fairly well the other night when we were talking about, we do this because we're very relational.
Right. That's really kind of our MO as far as how we look for people to play with in the lifestyle is, we're looking for people that have an obvious connection between the two of them. And because we feel like we have that obvious connection between the two of us, and those are the types of people that we want to play with, that have those strong relationships, and we're enjoying the friendships that we are making with the friends that, the people that we've met in the lifestyle, whether we play with them or not. Sometimes you meet people and you hit it off, and there's really not a lot of sexual attraction there, but there's a lot of common interests, and it's just, it's fun to be able to talk to people about, sexuality, things you can't talk to your vanilla friends about. And that's just been kind of an unexpected pleasure. Well, that has kind of carried over into the podcast. Our listeners are reaching out to us and kind of sharing their origin stories, or some struggles they've had, or some victories that they've had, funny stories or whatever. And that's been really kind of touching for us, because we know that y'all are busy, and we appreciate the time that you take to listen to our podcast. And then when you take that extra step, when you have the opportunity to contact us and share something about yourselves, or share, something that you'd like to hear us discuss, that truly, that means a lot to us. And we have had some like dialogue started, not just, we get an email and we say, hey, thanks a lot. There's actually been a lot of back and forth dialogue, and
right. So
it's been really fun.
So we're trying to find a way, and maybe a better way to couch this is to say what we're not looking for. There's a lot of podcasts and a lot of, and we've been doing this too, is just answer a question. Are you into this? What do you think about soft swap? And, so instead of doing that, we want to somehow allow you to share your relationship with us as much as you feel comfortable. And it'll be anonymous, obviously, if we decide to read it. But wherever you are in listening to whatever episode you're listening to, and we got a thing in the future, because podcasts, how it works is, people are going to be listening to episode 9 in May of 2015, May of 2016, 2017. And if we put a question out that's just relevant for a month, it only gives a certain number of people to respond. So we'd like you to, wherever you are, whatever you hear, if something resonates with you, send us a message and just tell us your thoughts on it. And if you've had an experience around that, share that experience, because we want to, read some of these at the end of our podcast.
With your permission, of course. Still reach out to us, even if you know that you don't want us to share it on air. Just say that, and we will certainly respect that.
Right. And if we do share it on air, we're not going to say names or anything like that. But it's a way to kind of, some of the advice and information that we're getting, it's a shame to keep this to ourselves. So we want to share it back out.
Because we're learning a lot from you all.
Right. And so one of the email that I'd like to share back tonight is from our new friends in Sydney, Australia.
Yes. Too bad it came in the form of writing versus voice, because I can only just begin to imagine how sexy the Australian accent is.
Yeah, well, I can't do that for you, so I'm just gonna...
but I got it in my head. I have it all set up in my head.
Okay.
It sounds good.
Yeah. So let me share what a couple of listeners from Sydney, Australia have said. So we are re-listening to podcast episode number 5, where you are talking about soft or not soft playtimes. I can see from your, Mr. Jones, discussion that the full swap step is a big one. Maybe you have already been there, or it has been a while. I certainly think that you should not take that step unless you're comfortable. However, I suspect it will not be as big of a deal as you think when the time comes. I suspect that you, Mr. Jones, is a very sensitive and committed person. You are the type of guy that when you say, I'll do that, you do it. Not keeping your word is not an option. Letting someone down is one of your worst fears. You are honest to a fault. Your commitment, when given, is total. I think that puts you, Mr. Jones, in a tough place. You feel that you've given your word to Mrs. Jones to be hers totally. That is understandable. However, may I suggest that you are moving into a new world, and this new world will bring you a new sense of life. It may help you to bring a perspective to your whole life, that your commitment is total, but you can also be flexible and more open than you have ever been. Again, it's totally in your hands. I was impressed with a quote that our yoga teacher mentioned yesterday. She's a wonderful person who just happens to be rather beautiful. And here's her quote. Well beyond our idea of right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Just a few thoughts. Hope I have not trod on any toes. And these are our friends from Sydney, Australia. So, first of all, they really listen because he described me.
He nailed you.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
there.
Yeah.
And then, the whole idea of a new perspective is what we're continuously learning in this lifestyle. Where we thought we were before is evolving, and things are becoming less scary. And so this quote about, well beyond our idea of right and wrong. So we have these thoughts about, what's right and what's wrong based on who we are and how we were raised. And to know that there's something beyond that where somebody wants to meet us is that illustration really was, I thought, captivating. And I just wanted to share that. And just so you'll know that they also have a sense of humor, they go on to say, and one more thing about toothbrushes. And, the toothbrush story that we told, there was not a sexy...
That's like the unsexiest thing we've ever talked about.
We get more comments about the toothbrush story. Well, here's another one. One more thing about toothbrushes. The Mrs. was brushing her teeth on Saturday night. She had picked up my brush by mistake. I said to her, I think that's mine. And she said, oh yeah, no big deal. I said, sure, no problems, except last time I used it to brush my ass. I was brushing my teeth with her toothbrush. Without blinking, she responded, oh, you do that too. Much laughter followed. We seem to be far more flexible in this matter than you. And I think they're talking to you, Mrs. Jones.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that.
So first of all, as you were saying, the time that it takes to think about the things that we say and to, think about that as a couple and talk about it as a couple, and then to sit down all the way across the other side of the planet and put such thoughtful words down and send it to us is really meaningful.
It was very cool.
Yeah, so we want to, and they did give us permission to share this back. So we're going to try to continue to do this. So, feel free to, of course, everyone likes to get the emails that says, we really love your podcast. You're doing a great job and thank you. And I'm not discouraging you from doing that because it's always good to hear. But we really want to hear what you think and how what you hear, is impacting the way that you're navigating this lifestyle. And if it's something that you'd like to share with us, we'd certainly appreciate that.
Yes.
So I think we are just about to the end. There was a couple more. So along those lines, what you can do to help us, because again, this is a hobby that we do. We're not going to we're never going to do this for a fee. We're never going to ask for donations. This is kind of something that we just do. So if there is anything that you want to do, there are two things, and that's one of them. Share this information back so that we can share it. And the other thing is
iTunes reviews.
Yeah. Yes,
we know that it's a time-consuming process to do an iTunes review, but what that does, it definitely pushes us to the top, so that when people are searching for new podcasts to listen to, especially people new to lifestyle and they don't really know which ones to go for because they haven't really heard any of them. So a lot of these you hear about word of mouth, or you hear about We Got a Thing on a different podcast, or we talk about other podcasts on our podcast, and it just kind of spreads that way. But if you're new, you are forced to do the dreaded iTunes search, and sometimes that's not an easy thing. So the more reviews we get, the higher we float to the top. When you do that search on lifestyle.
iTunes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we thank you in advance for doing that, and that's only if you feel led to do that, but we'd appreciate it. So to contact us, the email is by far the best way. I do a pretty good job of trying to get back to people immediately or within 24 hours. Our email address is wegotathing@gmail.com, and our website is wegotathing.com. You can follow us on Twitter at wegotathing, and I mentioned earlier, I believe, that we have a community in Cassidy. Please feel free to stop by and join us there. All of this information is on our website, all this contact information, and hopefully we're going to make it as easy as possible for you to reach out. So, Mrs. Jones, anything else?
I don't know. You're really getting into that Twitter. I have my smartphone at work, and I don't really have the kind of job where I can just kind of grab my phone and look at it at any point in time, but all these notifications come up. I can tell when it's an interesting Twitter day because I'll glance over at my phone and all these little Twitter notifications are popping up about all these like conversations that are flying back and forth.
Yeah, it's a great way if you want to have a conversation with me specifically, with us, in between episodes, follow us on Twitter and be engaged in the conversation. It's a lot of fun.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe that kind of stuff shouldn't be popping up on my phone, and I'll just kind of reach over and turn my phone over. That might not be appropriate. But it's good conversation.
Yes. Okay, well, it's time to say goodnight, and we'll be back next month. Thanks for listening, as always. We are Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and we got a thing.
What's your thing?